Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on to public input. First up, we have the Avondale Business Association relating to the future of Avondale and the Auckland development. I think I have Marcus and Cynthia down. No, Marcus and Ross. Kia ora. You just want to introduce yourselves and your roles, and then I'll just get you to switch that mic off. And thanks, sorry about that. Kia ora.
Kia ora, te alofa lava. My name is Marcus Amosa. I'm the chair of the Avondale Business Association. And this.
Yeah, and Ross Clow, I'm just a local board member and supporting.
First of all, I want to thank our elected members here for the opportunity. I stand here speaking on behalf of the Town Centre of Avondale as the representative and chair of the association. For those of you who don't know, our town centre has a heart that has been derelict for the last 26 years. Just a little bit of a background on our main street. There was once a thriving supermarket that locals know as Three Guys. The supermarket was closed in 1997 and the building was demolished. Since then, there's been a derelict concrete place that has been the heart of Avondale. And 4 years later, after the 1997 council was meant to develop the site with Rawson's development as a mixed retail development, but that never eventuated. This is our heart. This is Avondale's town centre, as you can see, and this is probably it looking at its best in the last 26 years. We do make use of the grounds as they are. We're a creative and very resourceful suburb. We've used that as a art centre and event space that we have activated throughout the years. Recently, Council has supported the Iki Panuku's Unlock Avondale Master Plan, which we are very thankful for, and the Tihono project. I want to thank the elected members who are supportive in having the funding get over the line for that, because this is another important part of this site, which is just adjacent to here. Iki Panuku's chosen partner for this, the revitalisation, has been Marituahu Iwi Auckland Group, which we're proud that they've chosen a partner such as this to deliver the much needed revitalisation of our heart. We are here though to, we understand that there are some issues with the development partners in Panuku in delaying this project, and we want to make sure that this project does continue, and we're here just to support the development proceeding without delay. The delay for us isn't months and years, it's 26 years that we've had to live with this concrete jungle as our heart. As you can appreciate something, these are our aspirations. We understand the positive impact that this will have on the community and the local businesses in the area. And I really want to urge all of our partners, council members, to work together so that we have a future that we can be really proud of. For us that live here, the delay affects us. And I just want to really stress that point and urge we need to work together. We need to find ways to make things move forward, come to resolution, because it's the community, it's us there that will suffer for any further delay. Avondale's such a unique and creative place, and really want us to work together on the shared vision. Thanks for the opportunity.
Kia ora. Did you want to add anything, Ross?
I think what Marcus is saying is basically there's been a breakdown in the relationship between Auckland and Panuku. It's not a breakdown, but things could be improved, and I think coming here, which maybe is not the appropriate committee, I'm not sure, but whether it just needs a little bit of mediation in the middle. Panuku is doing a great job and is following the dictates and direction that the council wants, and obviously a developer has other views, but really it's, I do remember a very old Split Ends song called Diffraction, Too Much Friction, and that's really sums it up in the relationship at the moment, and it is holding back this key development, and we just endorse, we're delighted that Auckland is the developer doing this, but yeah, it's at a bit of a stalemate.
Kia ora. Thank you, Ross, and thanks to the local board as well for supporting this. Thank you, Marcus, for that presentation. I know that Councillor Leone and Councillor Dalton, as the elected member liaison to Eke Panuku, understand the issues here. I don't have all the details of the negotiations between Eke Panuku and Auckland, but keen to work with Councillor Leone and Dalton on this. We will put up a resolution to refer this to the board, and keen to sit down and help. Obviously, these are, I assume, commercial and private negotiations between Auckland, so obviously don't want to be talking about those here. But yeah, really excited that you're supportive of that development, and obviously we know that when the Business Association, the local board and everyone are keen to see that sort of development and those residents coming into the heart of your community, that's great, but let's just hope we can get a positive outcome. One question, then just check if there are any more. Councillor Leone.
Kia ora, ngā mihi nui, kia kora. Thank you very much for coming in, and I know that you felt that it's really important that you have an opportunity to come and speak to the governing body and to the mayor about this issue. Look, I just really wanted to come back to the impact that it is having on the community. I know that we've seen the pictures, and we've already got one of the buildings from Auckland that have gone up, and I just wanted to see if there's anything you wanted to add specifically around the difference that has occurred, the vibe in Avondale with the other building already gone up, and the impact that has had.
Thanks for the question, Councillor. Yeah, it's had a positive impact. I live right next to that building. I advocated for it even though it blocked my view, but it's had a positive impact on the people walking on the street. I walk to and from work from around the area, so I can see there's changes coming. And for me, I want to make sure that we've got the diversity, we've got everything going for us in Avondale, and I want to see that continues.
Thank you for your mahi. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Are there any other questions? No. So how many residents, how many apartments is that first building that's gone up? Do you know?
114.
114, yeah. And having the people in the centre has helped.
100%. Yeah.
Thank you. Right. Well, we have just got a small addition to the resolution, thanking you and also referring it to Eke Panuku Board. I'll keep abreast of the issues, see if there's anything that we can do. Usually elected members stay out of those sorts of negotiations, but happy to see if there are things that we can help with, because we do want to see this development happen in your community. So thank you very much. Councillor Leone to move. Councillor Dalton, Deputy Chair, to second. All those in favour? Any opposed? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, so the next number of public forum items will be focused on the agenda item around Kitchener Road, around the Takapuna, Milford to Takapuna walkway. How we're going to do this is we're having Alex Whitten-Hannah on behalf of the owners first. So he will be able to give the presentation and the views of the owners and the story behind that. There'll be some questions. I'm going to try to stick to 2 questions per public forum, but if there are more for Alex, I would understand that because it's there may be some more information you need. I've got then, I think, 4 items, because normally we wouldn't be able to have this many people together, but thankfully the groups have agreed to do 4 sort of public forum items within 10 minutes, and then there'll be questions there. So, and then there's also Milford Residents Association as well. So we will start with Alex Whitten-Hannah. Would you like to come? Thank you very much. If you'd like to introduce yourself and give whatever you would like the committee to hear, you'll have 5 minutes. There may be a couple of questions after. Thank you for being here.
Mr Mayor, Mr Chair and committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the owners of 9 Kitchener Road. I am going to start by jumping to the conclusion of the submission of Dr Dunsford of the Milford Association, because she has summed this up very, very succinctly, and with her permission, I'm going to quote from her conclusion. To divide the walkway in half, as council is suggesting, would be an act of vandalism. We ask for the voice of the people to be heard and for common sense to prevail at last. And respectfully, Mr Mayor, I can just hear you saying, just fix it. In 2010, one of the late owners of 9 Kitchener Road, Paul Firth, commenced negotiations with Auckland Council for the council to provide Paul with a suitable settlement in compensation for his provision to the public of continuing access across the property. In 2011, after a storm demolished a bridgeway which provided access across the Firth property, Paul Firth allowed the community to cross his front yard within a few metres of his living room, a generous gesture that was much appreciated by the community. In 2012, Auckland Council initiated a plan change designating the old batch on the property as a Heritage Category A building, the highest possible category. And you wonder what planet they were on when they did that. This went through to 2013, apparently without Paul Firth's approval. Subsequent to the heritage listing, Paul Firth negotiated with Auckland Council for the purchase of the whole property as an alternative to the construction of a new bridge. In 2018, Paul Firth and his sister Anne's estate entered into a heads of agreement with Auckland Council, which provided for Auckland Council to purchase the property at 50% of its market value. Another very generous gesture when you consider that the property was worth at least $6 million at that stage. Council accepted responsibility for restoring the batch at an estimated cost of $800,000 and the maintenance of the cottage, which Council has estimated at $25,000 per annum. The property would have made an excellent resting place for the tens of thousands of people who walk through the property on the Takapuna-Milford walkway and would have provided permanent, safe access over the most difficult and dangerous portion of the walk. When entering into the heads of agreement, Auckland Council expressly recognised that the Firth property is unique among all the other properties on the Takapuna-Milford walkway in that it is the only property where public walk directly across the front yard of the existing house with no stone wall or other physical barrier separating private living areas from the public walkway. Auckland Council also acknowledged that a future owner of the property might well exercise that owner's right to prevent public access across the property. As it was legally entitled to do, in August 2022, Auckland Council withdrew from the heads of agreement 4 years after it was signed, advising its intention to close the walkway. The attached Auckland Council report gives an understanding of the reasoning behind the Council withdrawing from the agreement. Particularly relevant paragraphs have been set out in my submission. By the time that Auckland Council made the decision not to go ahead with the purchase at 50% of market value, Paul Firth had died. His beneficiaries, together with the beneficiaries of his late sister's estate, have asked Auckland Council to remove the heritage listing in respect of the derelict batch, and in exchange, they have offered to gift to the people of Auckland the land required for the walkway. And as an aside, I want to note that while Paul Firth had no children of his own, of his blood, his beneficiaries were his children of the heart, his heart, hence being his beneficiaries. Paul regarded them as his family, and the feeling was reciprocated. Removal of the heritage listing will require a plan change. The owners insist that Auckland Council initiate the plan change. Auckland Council put the listing on, Auckland Council can take it off. Auckland Council complained that the cost of that process would be around $100,000, a sum that apparently Auckland Council can ill afford. I suspect that a lot of that $100,000 comes from utilising existing employees' time. However, given that it would result in the walkway being preserved for the people of Auckland in perpetuity, that would be a small price to pay. Paul Firth did not object to the listing in 2012-2013. He had no reason to object, given that he was negotiating with Auckland Council to purchase the land. In 2018, that is what Auckland Council agreed to do, and set out in the heads of agreement between the parties. Had Council gone ahead with the agreement, there would have been no issue over the heritage listing or the walkway. To bring matters to a head, the owners set a deadline of 29 September 2023 for Council to agree to initiating a plan change. If nothing happened, the owners advised they would fence their property off, closing the walkway. The deadline passed, with Council having done nothing. The fence was erected on 29 September 2023. If Auckland Council agrees to initiate the plan change, the owners will remove the fence within 24 hours. They only have to agree to initiate it. There is huge angst in the community at being prevented from accessing the property so as to be able to walk safely along the coastline between Milford and Takapuna. Early in October 2023, in only 2 weeks, nearly 7,500 people signed a petition which was presented to Auckland Council on 17 October. Auckland Council accepted the petition and it's being discussed today. In the meantime, the walkway remains closed. Members of the community are being injured trying to navigate around the property over jagged lava rocks. Council staff will tell you, oh, we've put up signs, you can climb the 59 steps back up to Hurstmere Road, walk along Hurstmere Road and come down further along. But that's really just not acceptable. It's not human nature. People, young and old, are struggling around the lava rocks and are being injured. Auckland Council has suggested that to lift the heritage listing and accept the gift of the walkway would set a precedent that would adversely impact Auckland Council in respect of the other 71 properties that border the walkway.
Mr. Widenhanna, you're at 7 minutes. I'll let you go. I'll let you round up for another minute or so, but the 5 minute slot is ticked past. So just to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. All of the other 71 properties are fenced off. The Firth property alone has a walkway going across its front yard within just a few metres of the beach. The proposal by the owners to gift the land required for the walkway would establish a good and valuable precedent and might just inspire the other 71 owners to do likewise. I won't quote from the council report, which makes it clear why this building itself is not suitable for preservation. The derelict batch cannot be rented out. It's uninhabitable, it's decaying, deteriorating roof, complete with asbestos. The structure is a manifest danger. That is reflected in the report referred to. Auckland Council, when it withdrew from the heads of agreement, decided it could not justify the expense and has left the burden to the owners. That is grossly unfair and unjustifiable. A resolution to the current impasse is required urgently, not simply because the fence on the owner's property prevents the walkway being used by the thousands who wish to do so, but perhaps more importantly for the safety of the public who try to scramble around the lava rocks from serious injury. That point is now being known as ACC Central. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you very much for that presentation and explaining some of the history there, Mr. Whit and Hannah. I have a question from Daniel Newman first. I know the Mayor would like to have a question.
No, look, I think I better direct my questions to officers at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Mayor Brown, you have some questions?
Who are the owners now? I mean, it's changed hands, isn't it?
Yes, the beneficiaries of Paul Firth, his children of the heart, if I can call it that.
The children of the heart are a bit heartless. They're the ones who actually closed the walkway, didn't they? And my understanding is they haven't paid their rates for quite a while either. And so I'm not mad about dealing with people who don't pay their rates and close things off as a way of persuading people to their views. So, and as far as the heritage thing, why don't they do it themselves? They're sitting on several $1 million worth of land, which is clearly what they want to get their hands on. So raise it yourself. I mean, it's not the sort of behaviour that I approve of, really. You either become part of the community or you don't.
Mayor Brown, maybe just if we could
just ask the question.
There's a number of questions
Well, the question is,
wrapped up in there.
okay, so
Well, why haven't the rates been paid? Because these young people have mortgages of their own and simply can't afford the rates. There is a statutory notice on the title so that when the property is sold, the rates will be paid. If the heritage listing is lifted, the property can be sold and rates aren't an issue.
well, the rates are an issue to the extent that they have transferred the ownership already, and you shouldn't transfer an ownership unless you've paid the rates. That's one of the basic things there. And if you can't tell me that you can't raise the sum of the rates against a piece of property with that value, and then why don't they raise the application themselves? Because this would set precedents. Lots of other people allow their property to be used on over there, and so this would set a trend.
Mr. Mayor,
They have 76 of these people coming along, and the other people are generously allowing people to walk on their land. So,
we could just stop and allow.
Mr. Mayor,
question.
you please appreciate that the Firth family have allowed the public to walk across the land, not just for a few years, but for decades and decades and decades, since the end of the Second World War.
Well, good on them for that.
Good on them, indeed. Now, so to answer your question about why don't they bring in, initiate a plan change, the answer is simple. Firstly, of course, the cost is horrendous, because if they initiate a plan, seek to initiate a plan change, council officers will have a field day, a feast. There will be reports from planners, from historians, from all manner, Uncle Tob, Cobley and all. The costs will be horrendous. Now, if Auckland Council initiate a plan change, they can do so efficiently. They'll use their own staff, and it's almost inconceivable that the commissioners would be likely to maintain the heritage listing. Council can do it, and it can do it quickly. But importantly, sir, if council initiate it, if you agreed today to initiate the plan change, the fence would be down by the weekend.
It's blackmail, really, isn't it?
No, it's not blackmail at all.
Why is it blackmail?
Well, blackmail is a criminal offence where you threaten somebody if they don't do something that they will be liable for criminal prosecution. It's not even remotely blackmail. It's simply making council sit up and take notice. Instead of taking years to reply to letters, my first letter was 9th of August 2022. So can you imagine how surprising it was that the reply was in August 2023, a year later? This is not the efficient council that you stand for, sir.
All this took place well before my time. I mean, but so you can't blame me for things that didn't happen. But I still can't understand. I mean, why would it cost more if the people are applying, not out of the beneficiary of their heart, they're applying so they can greatly improve the value of their piece of land. And so other people raise money to invest to improve the value of their land.
So
I don't see what's special about this lot, particularly
very
people
special.
who've
Very
upset.
special. There are 71 properties, other properties,
Yes.
none of which have had a heritage listing put on. Only this one has had a heritage listing put on by council. Apparently all they did was write a letter to Paul Firth. There was no reply. We don't know whether he ever got it. And then council agreed in 2018 to buy the whole property, eliminate the issue. And then last year, because I pressed them, because nothing was happening, nothing was being said, I pressed them. In August last year, I finally got a reply, oh, we're not going to buy the section. And this is extraordinary, sir. They also replied, we intend to close the walkway. Well, can you imagine that? The Auckland Council didn't own the land to close the walkway, but yet that's what they said they would do. They would close the walkway. Now, Your Honour, Sir, Your Worship, you will hear shortly from how thousands upon thousands of people on the North Shore want this walkway reopened. Council can do it by this weekend simply by saying, we will initiate a plan change.
Well, I mean, I don't see why they can't initiate a plan change and do it themselves.
I've just explained why, because of the...
No, you haven't, because as soon as we do that, everyone will want us to pay for their plan changes. We get dozens of... I mean, I've put in plenty of plan changes myself, and I haven't asked anyone else to pay for it, because the beneficiaries are the people who apply. So I'm just... We can't do... I don't want to do things that set a trend that's going to go all over the district. Suddenly we're going to pay for everybody's plan changes because a group of inheritors don't want to pay for their bills. So you haven't answered the question, but why would
quite
do that?
unfair.
Mayor and Mr Wooden-Hannah, I think we're becoming debating rather than questions. There will be a chance, Mayor, for debate at the item. I guess the one question I have, Mr Wooden-Hannah, just on the, I know that previously, a couple of weeks ago, your recommendation was if we remove the heritage listing, you will open up the walkway. But now it's, if we initiate the plan change, you will remove the fences. But I guess my question is...
Not even that, sorry, I need to be absolutely clear. If council says, we will initiate the plan change, you don't have to do it, but they say, we will initiate it, the fence will be down with 24 hours. If the committee resolved today, council will initiate the plan change, it'll be down for the people to walk this weekend.
No, that's fine, but the advice we've had is that a private initiated plan change and a public initiated plan change by the council is exactly the same process, just depending who leads it. My question is, if we don't have control over the independent commissioners who decide whether the heritage listing is removed or not, if we processed it or somehow got budget for that, and the independent commissioners said, no, we will not be removing the heritage listing, will you put the fence back up?
Look, that's a hypothetical question that is, it is almost inconceivable that the commissioners would maintain the heritage listing on this cottage. It's
Mr Wooden-Hannah, so the advice we've had is that the reasons... Anyway, we'll come to the item, but I guess my point is, I understand your question has now changed from removal of the heritage to initiating, or at least saying we'll initiate a plan change. My question is, if the independent commissioners do not agree to move the heritage listing, which is the advice we've had would likely happen, would the fence go back up?
I'm not going to speculate to the answer to that right now.
I guess that...
It's some distance down the track, but I can't imagine it happening, because the commissioners would hear evidence from many, many people and about how important this walkway is. It's part of the heritage of the North Shore, far more than that derelict cottage. It's the walkway that is the heritage here.
Thank you. So I guess the speculation that this puts us in a difficult position to spend up to $100,000 of ratepayer money if we're being told it's likely the heritage listing wouldn't be removed. And are you saying if we initiate, the fence comes down, but then independent commissioners don't agree with the direction and keep the heritage listing, which we can't, as elected members, control, the fence would go back up?
I didn't say that.
No, but would the fence stay down regardless of what the...
I said I can't speculate that far into the future.
Okay.
But to say that it's a little specious for council to say it costs $100,000 for council to initiate a plan change, because they're using employees that are sitting behind their desks already.
Okay. Well, I was just making sure that for myself, the understanding is that the fence could go back up if...
It's a possibility, but what
Right.
council needs to be aware of, they can fix this and have the walkway open by the weekend if they've got the desire to do so.
Right. Thank you very much. Oh, now I have questions. Sorry, I had no questions. That's why I questioned. Councillor Newman.
Good morning and thank you, Mr Wittenhatter. I've been fascinated to hear this exchange. I'm not from Takapuna, I'm from South Auckland, but just from my understanding, and I'm not overly familiar with this, I see from documents that there has been discussions previously about acquisition and what have you. Has any local authority, either current or previous, ever tried to negotiate to establish an easement for access? Has it only ever been about a discussion around purchase of land? Has there ever been a discussion around the easement rights?
Yes, back in 2010, if you have a look at the heads of agreement which I've attached, right at the commencement of it, you will see that in 2010, Paul first started negotiating for compensation for the use of the walkway, and necessarily the implication of that is that it would include an easement. Council wouldn't pay compensation without a pedestrian walkway, obviously.
Thank you, Councillor. Member Tohenade online.
Kia ora, Chair. My question is about mana whenua, and there are a number of iwi groups around that area. Have you contacted them in any shape or form about this issue?
No, I haven't, but I can tell you this with absolute confidence, that that walkway has been used by mana whenua probably for centuries as a means of getting between Milford and Takapuna along the coastline. And I cannot imagine that the mana whenua would support the Auckland councillors who say that this walkway doesn't matter.
Would you entertain an approach to mana whenua groups with a view to maybe seeing if they would be amenable to going in with you for a plan change?
Yes, if I was provided with the people to contact, or they would be welcome to contact me. I'm probably one of the easiest people on the North Shore to find.
Thank you, Chief.
Good. Thank you, Member Henade. Right. Thank you, Councillor Darby.
Just one. Thanks, Alex. Look, I get your frustration. I've been dealing with this issue for a long time as well. But I guess a Heritage A listing is a high classification. It's our very best.
It's bizarre that it was put there.
Possibly. So I want to take you there, and no doubt you've accessed all the writings of Paul Firth, and I've seen public comments that are recorded in media, print media, where Paul has spoken with a great heart for the uniqueness of the place that he lived in, not just the land but the building. He spoke about that uniqueness, and look, I've seen the correspondence that went to him when the heritage status application was being highlighted, and while there's no record of a letter back there of either objecting or supporting, there was a record of his deep interest in protecting that place, by the comments that he made. He made those comments. So are you suggesting Paul, because you're saying it is about Paul, it's about Paul's wishes, are you saying that Paul did not cherish that place, and he did not in any way anticipate a Heritage A listing?
I have never said, nor have the owners ever said, anything like that. Paul Firth was lulled into a sense of false security by Auckland Council officers who entered into the heads of agreement that said, we, Auckland Council, will buy the whole of this property, we will undertake the preservation of this cottage, we will restore it, we will keep it as a writer's residence or an artist's retreat. Auckland Council lulled him into a sense of false security, and who would be surprised that Paul Firth would not be enthusiastic about that? Indeed, his late sister's beneficiaries were so enthusiastic about that they offered to gift their half of the estate. Paul wasn't, but Paul was enthusiastic that Auckland Council said, yes, we will preserve this property, we will preserve this cottage. But then, August 2022, Auckland Council backed right down and said they'd close the walkway. Now, if Paul Firth had still been alive and that had been said, he would be sitting where I am now with smoke coming out of his ears.
Thanks, Alex. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Right, I'll move and Councillor Darby will second. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you very much, Mr. Woodenham.
Thank you.
All those in favour? Any opposed? No, thank you. Okay, right. Right, so the next we have Sandra Allen. Cool. Thank you. You all want to introduce yourselves individually to the committee one at a time, so you'll need to use the mics on and off when you're speaking. And so you'll have 5 minutes for your presentation. Thank you very much and welcome. I'll just wait till you're settled before we start the clock. Kia ora, Sandra, you're going to lead us off.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sandra Allen.
Stephen Salt, Chair of the Takapuna Residents Association.
Brandon McCarthy, Committee Member, Takapuna Residents Association.
Is Franco Belgiorno, Takapuna Resident Association.
And Emma Davis, Takapuna Residents Association.
Thank you very much for being here. So.
Good morning, tēnā koutou. A couple of months ago, we presented a petition with 7,500 signatures gathered in a couple of weeks to save the Takapuna Milford Walkway. Since then, Council has had several interviews, articles, one of the biggest, our Auckland articles, laying out the challenges to keep the walkway open. The local board has had a presentation on options. We're getting concerned that there's a lack of recognition or weighting of how important the pathway is to the community. The issues are all laid out and we can have a debate about those, but some of the things that have come up, you know, the path crosses other properties, that's technically correct, but the path is below the physical boundary of all those existing properties. And property owners have shown goodwill for decades. And why do we assume that that would change now? And I can tell you that the community would not support an opportunistic approach by other property owners. We've had a lot of debate about the heritage listing. It's clear that council can't make that planning decision. There is a statutory process. But council can show their support and their recommendation, which would carry some weight with the planning commissioners. And with the emails of planning changes that go through Auckland at the moment that I've seen, you know, there is not so much difficulty with a planning change when it's for the public good, such as a road, a bike lane, drainage, a park. One of the other issues we've seen is the replacement of the bridge poses a challenge due to climate change. We're a coastal city. Climate change is here. These are the sorts of things that we have to deal with. In the papers today, it talks about a safety problem. At the board presentation, they talked about that the path is 1.5 metres wide and council standard is 1.8. It talks about, you know, people might access the path or a bridge during a storm. Well, that might be true, but people might go out in boats in storms. You know, you can't, you can't control poor decisions by some individuals. It talks about the council is exposed as a PCBU. I'm not quite sure why this particular area of path is so special compared to the thousands of kilometres of other pathways and that the council currently owns and manages. And the current situation is actually likely to lead to more serious injury, if not a fatality, if it continues the way it is. And we totally support the council managing its cost and prioritising its resources. But the question here is just what is going to meet the threshold for council to spend its resources. You know, this is not only a community asset, it's an Auckland asset and even a national asset. It's used by thousands of people. It supports well-being, recreation, sporting events. It aligns totally with all the council strategy. It's our version of the Bondi to Coogee walk. You know, it provides economic benefit. It draws people to Takapuna. It makes Takapuna a destination in line with the Takapuna strategy. And it actually has very minimal maintenance costs, so it provides a very good payback for the benefits it provides. So I'm not sure if it's risk aversion, embarrassment that little has been achieved in the last 10 years, bias against Takapuna, but it's disheartening to see so much weighting put on the challenges and so little weighting put on the benefits that this walkway provides. So what I'm asking this committee is to recognise the pathway is of city, if not national importance, and deserving of this committee's support. And we're asking this committee to show some leadership and work with the community to restore this well-loved and used assets and encourage officers to seek solutions and not avoidance. And ideally, if they can, find even a temporary solution to get the pathway open for the summer. You know, as community representatives, we recognise the solution may be challenging, and we're willing to work with the council to find a solution, but we do not support capitulation and doing nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you, Stephen, for the presentation. Councillor Ferry, question?
Thank you. So I grew up on the shore and have used that walkway a lot. I used to sail from Milford Beach with Awataha Young Mariners. So I know the area quite well, even though I lived over in Glenfield. It is a beautiful walkway. I think the question that I struggle with is how we prioritise this particular stretch of walkway as opposed to other walkway projects that we have. Like we have one in my area that we weren't able to progress because the funding disappeared due to COVID. And building in the coastal environment is really expensive. So how would you say we should consider prioritising this over potentially other investments? It's not, I'm sorry, I can see I've upset you with this question, ma'am, but I'm just trying to get my head around, you know, a lot of our decision making is prioritising. So how would you prioritise this over some of our other similar projects? Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question, and we have other walkways in the area that you know, have looked for being built in development. I think the prioritisation comes from the number of people that use it and how much benefit it provides to people. The significance to not just the local area but also citywide, and as we say, it's of national importance because it's also part of the national trail. I think also the economic benefits, because it does help Takapuna become a destination. It is bringing people into Takapuna. That becomes a very busy area in the weekend. It's part of the sporting facilities. You know, there's the Coastal Challenge and various other sporting events that pass through that area. So it ticks an awful lot of boxes. And I think if you lay out those boxes and compare it to some of the other walkways and projects, I would expect this one would float very close to the top.
And the walkway is to be gifted.
Well, supplementary then, because one of the challenges in that space is obviously we don't own this land. We don't, you know, it's over a number of private properties. So even if we did purchase this portion, there's other portions too. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Some of our other walkway projects, we already own the land, for example. So any comments on that in terms of the what could turn into an acquisition for us?
Yeah, with the other properties, the walkway, if you go along there, you would not think that you're actually walking on on private property. And it's an issue because they're very old titles and they go down to the high water mark. And, you know, the current Auckland plan is that if those properties are developed and subdivided, then actually that coastal land would come back to council. I think there is a fear that those property owners could turn around and say, well, you've been walking across my land and I'm going to put a fence up over these rocks. And that, you know, there is a potential that some property owner might spend thousands and thousands of dollars trying to fence off lava rocks. But I think you have to judge what is the risk of that compared for the cost of them doing it, the goodwill that's been shown. There's been no suggestion anywhere from anybody that that could happen and would happen. And if somebody did try to do that, then, you know, that's a risk, but it's so small.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watson, you have a question.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, and agree absolutely with the iconic nature of this walk and the, you know, I think it would be the heaviest used walkway, you know, north of the bridge, and has been, you know, for time and eternity. So my question is then, given the impasse that exists, and I agree also that the diversion is not a solution, essentially two separate walkways taking out the link, just that's not sustainable, and I would suggest not acceptable to the community. So there's a lot of well-connected individuals in the various associations, and there's a lot of creative building and construction that has occurred in Takapuna and Milford. Has anyone, and it goes to your notion of an interim solution or something that can help in the short term, has there been any ideas emerged from the community itself in terms of any structure or intervention that might be doable in the short term, that allows the walkway to continue and allows people to get past this bit without, you know, risking life and limb clambering over the rocks as I had to try and do myself? Has any left field suggestions coming up by way of construction or overseas examples that have occurred to anyone?
From what I've seen, there hasn't been, but I have to say that we haven't actually been involved in trying to find a solution. That this seems to be happening basically between council and the owners, and it appears to have become slightly combative, and the community has not actually been that involved, if involved at all, in trying to find a solution. And we would love to be involved because we recognise there are challenges, and we're really keen to find a solution. But no, I haven't seen any left field ideas.
Thank you. And last question from Mayor Brown.
Look, I have a lot of sympathy for this, and I've walked the thing myself beforehand, but I'm not mad about being held to ransom. And I'm not mad about setting precedents, because there are 70 other people out there, and you can't rule out one of those people isn't going to do exactly what you've suggested, block off their bit, and it's not that hard to do, actually. The community, when you said it hasn't been involved, well, bloody well should be involved. This should be something that doesn't get this far, to be quite honest. I'm disappointed it's here. Because when it comes here, it sets a precedent across an area that goes from Wellsford to Pukekohe. And you've got a situation there, just so they understand, if you lodge your own plan, it'll be contentious. If we lodge it, it'll be contentious. Because if you want to be contentious in Auckland, all you've got to do is something. And so it'll be contentious. If you lodge it yourself, the lodging cost is about 30 to 50 grand maximum, okay? If it gets to 100 only if it's appealed. If we lodge it, or if you lodge it, the same process goes through. Now, I can't believe, if the solution is to lodge it, I can't believe that on North Shore there isn't enough people to whip round and find the 30k to put it in if the owner won't do it. And then it becomes an application by the community, which is quite different from an application from the council. The council is the authority that approves or doesn't approve these things. And so we can't be enthusiastic or unenthusiastic about it. So it strikes me that the community, if I was living on the North Shore, I could find 30 grand in about an hour.
Yeah,
If that's what the community truly believe. But you've got to put the onus of these things are not there, they're their inheritors. They're trying to get an advantage for themselves, which is human nature. I completely I can see that, you know. Here's an opportunity, get them by the balls, squeeze a bit. Suddenly a piece of land's worth a lot of money. And other people will observe it along there, so it's more tricky than what you think. But the community should definitely be involved. The community should be solving this. I would really like to see, rather than this be solved here, that the community come up with a way of dealing with this. The community could say, we will lodge on behalf of whoever it is that currently owns this, who don't appear to be locals, from what I can gather. Otherwise, they'd be here.
Mayor, just
so what, so my question is, would you? I mean, I'm surprised when you say the community is not involved. You're here. Get involved.
Yeah, if I can answer that. So, as an association, we don't think it's appropriate that we start getting involved with private property issues. It would not be appropriate for us to lodge a plan change on behalf of a private property owner.
So why is it appropriate for us to do that? Because we don't do that normally. Because councils don't lodge on behalf of private property owners under normal circumstances for exactly the reason that you just explained why you would.
Well, I'm not sure that's entirely correct, because the council, if it needs land for a road widening, bike lanes, that sort of thing, and the road is not designated correctly, then the council can lodge a plan change.
That's not on behalf of a private property. That would be on behalf of the residents of the greater city. Now, in a way, this does advantage the residents of the greater city, as you've carefully explained. And I mean, I would like to see it open as well. I mean, I'm almost painting myself into a position where everyone say, oh, he's an arsehole. But I'm not. I'm trying to say that I represent 1.6 million people, of whom a lot of those people would see this as a great advantage. And so it's quite tricky. And the idea that we or you or anyone lodges this and it's a guaranteed thing is another question, because there are a lot of people out here that will, in our community, that will arrive at this thing and say, we want to protect this heritage. Now, you and I may not think it's a great heritage, but I'm not everybody, and nor are you. And so I'm wondering if the best result is the community go away and think, now what can we do? How can we sort out with Mr. Wittenhanner and his customers who we don't know, how we can come up with some sort of solution which doesn't, or perhaps if the other 73 potential properties agreed that they weren't going to do this, but you can't speak on behalf of 73 people unless you ask them.
No, that's quite correct. But we would be willing to sit in a room with council and the beneficiaries and see if we can work on some sort of solution to
That
this.
might be a solution out of this, but I think a voting solution around here is not a good solution, because if you take a risk of it being no, and I don't think that's a good risk if I was in your situation. I would ask that perhaps the chief planner and the chairperson of this committee and whoever is the council for that district and the head of the community board, local board over there.
Mayor, I have one of the resolutions that I'll be putting up later on says that whatever happens through the debate, we continue discussions with the local board. I can add the local community if that's appropriate. That would have to be to be negotiated with the owners first to bring other people in. But
so I'm just saying this. You know, the legal solution from the lawyer is kind of a bullet at the head, and that is not a good way to deal with me. I can tell you, mate. You know, I'm not like that.
This council represents the people.
Mr. Wittenhanner,
mate, I'm talking to people who represent the people, not people who represent a customer. These people represent
Mayor Brown, we'll have the opportunity for debate, and so we've just got to try and stick to questions. I think, yeah. So there will be, through the resolution, some of that I'm willing to put forward to try and get those sorts of discussions happening for solutions. But there are no more questions, so I will just, Deputy Mayor, would you like to move? And I'll second that. Thanks to the Takapuna Residents Association relating to this item. We thank you for your presentation, and we'll definitely, no matter what happens here today, we'll be keeping you involved as much as possible, but obviously those discussions need to happen with the owners of who they want around the table, if they want to meet around it. So thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
Right, so next we have a bit of an... all those in favour? Sorry. Any opposed? Thank you. Right, so we have a bit of an omnibus. Thank you to Trish Deans from the co-chair of Devonport Heritage. She's organised and with the willingness of the people she's attending with to try their best to fit all their presentations within 10 minutes instead of having separate presentations. So I've really appreciated your work on this, Trish. So we have Trish Deans, we've got Bill Rayner, Jeff Chappell, and I think that's all. So Trish, I think, will lead off, and if you do this however you feel is right within 10 minutes, and there will be questions as well.
I've put my timer on. Thank you for hearing us this morning. I guess I'm going to cut to the chase because you've heard so much, so we might as well get on with that. Council's always acknowledged this property as unique among the other properties, and that's in the heads of agreement, and that was agreed with Paul and Anne, essentially. There has been a legitimate process that has been undertaken in terms of the scheduling of the property since 2012, and I'll go back to that in a moment. But you've heard, this is an invaluable walkway, and I'm not going to go over that. So, Council, we're asking you for a negotiated settlement or a negotiation behind the scenes, really, because that's what's being suggested, and that's very sensible. We're putting in, and I'm putting in, well, our Heritage Group is putting in an idea that since Council has had a divestment program, North Shore has been at the centre of that divestment program. In terms of the following parcels of land, we have had the Takapuna car park, the Gasometer site, Mary Thomas site, 3 the Strand, 3 Victoria Road, 3 pocket parks, and 2 lots of the Own Your Own housing scheme by council. So we've participated in divestment. So we feel that we've paid our dues in many respects. Now, on the 8th of February 2022, the Finance and Performance Committee agreed that on a case-by-case basis, the surplus may be used to fund investment in another asset of a higher strategic priority than that of the asset sold. So in other words, paraphrasing, you have the ability to use this authorisation for the Finance and Performance Committee to use funds associated with the North Shore through the divestment program to purchase this property. So we're putting that in front of you as an idea that should be considered. We know the central stalling points around this. We know that funding the purchase would be a key issue. Which parcel of land, how much, the value and category, the value of the category A to the community. What area, will the area being discussed or bought actually meet the needs? So what we're doing is asking council to purchase the full property. It's a rare opportunity. Now, Jeff will discuss some of that currently. Council needs to open negotiations with the family, assess the unencumbered value of the property, discuss the heads of agreement wishes of Anne and Paul Firth, and arrive at a settlement. And we're asking you to do that in private, not here today. But that's where we need to head. That's where we'd like you to head. Now, this tricky thing about the scheduling. I was around, as was Councillor Darby at the time. Plan Change 38 was going ahead. So if you look at Plan Change 38, a vast document, actually was led by Jerry Salmon. So it's not a flippant document by any means. I'll just check the time. It's very much described as part of the arts program of the North Shore and identifies all the writers who've been around and how that property and how Clifton Firth was associated with all of that. I'm not going to go into that, although I just did, but you've got the public pamphlet in 2012. You've got some idea of correspondence with Paul Firth, and you've got public statements as well. It was a properly a legitimate scheduling process for that property, and there was an opportunity in Plan Change 10 to address that, and a letter was sent out to the owners at that point in time that was addressing anomalies. There is also in progress at the moment Plan Change 82. Now what that comes from is the AUP said certain properties in North Shore should be re-evaluated, and that's what we've been doing at the moment. That property did not come into that plan change. It was not ever progressed by the heritage team. I'm going to leave it at that. Just to reiterate, please consider the purchase of this property. Jeff.
Thanks. I'm here representing Te Araroa Trust and also Te Araroa Auckland Tāmaki Makaurau Trust. And there's a letter that's been distributed which sets out our position, which is of support to Devonport Heritage, that council buy the property, gets it valued at whatever the market rate might be, and purchase it whatever the market rate might be, unencumbered, and purchase it at that rate. Now, I'm sure the Mayor may take a step backwards at that proposal, but as Trish says, there are funds which have come from other sales which could fund that. A couple of reasons why. This is the great entrance of Te Araroa into Auckland. I mean, it's absolutely world class. The Pahudakawas are coming into bloom just as the walkers come through, coming down from Cape Reinga. It is a fabulous part of our walkway, and if we just devolve for the moment to sections, Okura through to Devonport, which is 27 k's, this is the highlight. This Milford Takapuna section is the highlight of that 27-kilometre walk. Why? You're walking across lava rock. You're looking across at Rangitoto, the youngest volcano. You're walking on the lava of the oldest volcano. I think Pupuki is about 250,000 years old. So, and I've looked at the cadastral on this property, and I think there are enormous advantages of the council actually owning it. One of the things is that the right-of-way, which has never been developed, pops out onto Kitchener Road right opposite the entrance to Henderson Park, where you go down to Pupuki. So from having a look at the youngest volcano sitting out there, in Carl Stead's words, sunk in its stone composure, he wrote a poem for us as we opened this part of the walkway, and that features in his poem. Lovely, lovely description of Rangitoto, and then you can zip up the old right-of-way and have a look at the phreatic crater of Pupuki. The oldest, the youngest, there you go. So there are those sorts of advantages. Now, there's something else I want to say. Obviously, Te Araroa wants it for the reason that, we've then got our through walk back down into Auckland. But the other thing is, we always try and develop the trail corridor and make it a rich experience for the people who are coming through. We want them to see what New Zealand culture is like. And this humble little vernacular cottage, sitting more or less in the shadow of glass and steel international architecture, is a fantastic contrast, those two things together. Yeah, the old Pākehā thing of building a tin shed on paradise, if you like, and then, market values predominate in the long run, and so you've got the mansions. Well, sitting at the foot is this wonderful little place. So, and the other thing I want to bring up is that as a journalist, I set out to find who owned these properties. And I have found out, and I'm not going to say publicly who they are because I don't want to put them in a spot, but let me say that half the owners are what you might call have acted always for the public good. A guy I know who is now dead, but he helped renovate the Riwiali cottage in Moeawatia. In Wanganui, he preserved their tramways, the old trams and so on. So he was all for renovation of heritage, if you like. Now he, in combination with Paul, they were the two who said, yes, this should be developed as a heritage site. And they have inherited, that family has inherited, I think, half of this property. So were council to spend their $6 million to get this, to satisfy the owners, so-called, they might get some of that money back. And that's why I would support that they set down. There's more than one lawyer involved here. There's Alex, but this other property holder I'm telling you about also has a lawyer. And I'm not going to present their position in any way, but I will say that that it would be worthwhile sitting down in a group with not just Alex Whitten-Hannah, but also the lawyer from this other group, and just seeing how that money, were it to be, were the $6 million to come from council, and then council has the property, that, how that money might be used. It's not only, I suggest, for private gain.
Okay, and Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a slightly different approach. As you know, I'm Grey Power, and Grey Power's had a long involvement on the shore on Auckland with community projects, looking at a positive approach and solution focused attitude. And once again, my submission arises out of finding solutions that the Mayor was talking about with the Devonport Local Board, asking them to take a dynamic, positive, proactive approach to retaining the Firth property and connecting with the community, the developer community in particular, to raise whatever the necessary funds might be. The paper's included in your agenda, which gives the full details, but I appreciate I'll give the bullet points. We've talked about the iconic nature of the shore. The other point I'd like to make is in our previous times, you might put it, council and the business community and the community in general had a linkage. It was just the nature of the times, and I would point out that there are situations like the North Shore Aero Club and the Millennium Centre started from businessmen's initiatives with the community and developed into the wonderful facilities they are today. This is no longer the case. With the corporatisation and the internationalisation of the commercial world, the local linkage with the people in the community has been lost, and it needs to be re-established and new connections made. Trish has made the point about the amount of property that's been sold from the North Shore into the general sort of council fund, and this is an issue shared with many local communities. And I also understand that the current sort of development levies do not apply to community facilities, but just infrastructure impact. And also, it was interesting, Ross Clough is here today. The North Shore Council holds a residual city fund of $3 million from the old Takapuna Camping Ground Yachting Centre project that did not proceed. This was brought up by council to be given to the Yachting New Zealand, but it was turned down. Wayne Walker was very involved in that. He will remember, and Ross Clough was the chairman of that committee who was here today. So there's $3 million in essence of what you might say funding in the council process for North Shore situation. The other point that I think is particularly relevant is the intensification of the city has created mega millions of capital gains and income flows for the major property developers in the local area. This is compounded, one, by the legislation on intensification, also by the recent commissioner decisions allowing extensions. Takapuna is a metro centre. We have 4 huge, intense developments taking place. We'd be happy to send them to Avondale, and it's a special situation. The heritage cottage should be retained, as I say, could be developed as a sort of as a rental accommodation. So all we're asking, basically everybody else, is that the council buy the property. The $5 million is probably not a significant. Pick up on what the council and the mayor have done with the Botanic Gardens. It's a situation that had to happen. It's the right decision. It was done. And we ask you to do the same thing for the walkway. Just buy the property. We just should do it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to the three of you, and adding to the challenge, quite different recommendations, which shows some of the complexity behind our the decisions here. I have two questions so far. Councillor Dalton, Deputy Chair.
Thank you for your presentation. Trish, just a question for you around the heritage status, Category A heritage status. Mr. Witten Hannah says that shouldn't have been applied by council. But listening to the three of you, it sounds like it is a heritage site that should be maintained. What is your view on that?
It's not a matter of having Mr. Whitten-Hannah's personal view or mine. Council listed the property as Category A back in 2012, I think it was it? And assessments were made. Those assessments at the time, and I have listed them, relate to all sorts of, where is it? They relate to social, historical, physical knowledge. You have categories there already, and those categories were further developed by the AUP. So they become standardised in Chapter D, which the council will be aware of, but not necessarily the public, of course. So it's not my personal opinion. It is listed as a Category A, and along have come the experts and said that is what it is. And they've judged it on those categories.
And there were two further plan changes. Well, Plan Change 10, which addressed any anomalies, and then Plan Change 82 at the moment.
Yeah, we've worked hard on Plan Change 82 as a group to try and retain some as A's. Yep.
Thank you. My second question is for Jeff. You mentioned an unencumbered valuation. I just wanted to clarify your meaning of unencumbered.
Well, I think Alex would agree that at present the Category A is an encumbrance. That's the way I would define that. And I would say assess the value were that not on it, and buy it, the council buy it at that value, but the Category A stays on, if you see what I mean, because council has now got a Category A heritage property on it.
And thank you for bringing perhaps a financial solution to the table. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor. Mayor Brown.
Right, first of all, Jeff, thanks for the terrain book. I really loved it. A tour of New Zealand with someone who understands geology is my favourite book. And I think you might be surprised by my response. I think this is actually this is worthy of consideration. It is a sensible solution. It doesn't seem to hold a gun at anyone's head. The property does have an A category on it, and that makes it worth less than if it didn't have an A. That's the situation. That is the world in which we live. And clearly, Mr. Whitten-Hannah's customers would like to dump it and make the profit from the difference. It's got a value at the moment, and so I think just buying it as it is, with what it's got, is a solution. And if they want to change that and challenge that, they should use their money to change that. And so I think this is also showing it's a little bit more complex than the people in the back of the room want. I think this is worthy of further thought, and it comes to what we were talking before. I think later in the day, the chairperson of this committee is possibly suggesting that there is a group of people that might talk about this, but it is a Category A site. It has been listed. Just because we might lodge a change, there's no guarantee that that's going to produce a change at all. So we spend all the money and the bloody fence goes up again because they're upset. Well, that's the sort of people they seem to be. So good on you. And I'd love to have a beer with you and talk about terrain.
Anytime. Who pays for the beer?
I'll pay for the beer.
Terrific.
Right, we might, thank you, Mayor, we might move on from the beers. Member Henare, you have a question online.
Kia ora, Chair. Has anybody looked at the precedent of council buying a private site?
Member Herele, that might be a question for the item. We'll have all the...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll have all the experts to discuss anything that that we can openly talk about.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it Ellie?
Oh, Chapel. Okay, sorry. Is it Ellie?
Ellie.
Apologies for that. Councillor Darby would move and Deputy Mayor would second. All right, we're having fights over who seconds and first, but we all agree. Pick two, Sandra. All those in favour? All right, thank you. Oh, just one, out of order from me, just one question. I would assume that if we did put a plan change through that Devonport Heritage, or you would know of other groups who would be submitted in opposition to, I mean, I don't want you to put you on the spot here, but...
Well, we haven't discussed it, but you could assume that, yes. It's an offshore property that's listed. And if it can't simply be, we don't like it over there, it has to be, and it's not a simple matter, it's the IHP, the Independent Hearings Panel, has to be appointed. It is a costly process. So, and you won't necessarily, people won't necessarily get the answer they want by any means. That's up to the hearing commissioners.
And my last question, because I have been asked this by media, could us choosing to make a RMA-based decision based on a deal set precedent for other Category A bills?
I'm really not able to answer that. That's a legal question which you may ask.
No, that's fine.
Staff.
I haven't obviously sat on the other side of a hearing panel like you have, so it's just...
Yeah, we're very cautious.
Thank you. Right, we'll move on to now we have... We've got Milford Residents Association. We've got Chris and Debbie, Norma and Richard coming to speak. Thank you all for being here. If you just want to introduce yourselves as you speak. The buttons to turn on the mic are on the right. You just have to turn them on and off when you speak. Thank you very much for being here. You'll have 5 minutes starting now.
Kia ora, Mr Chairman, councillors and Mayor. We're here today with Debbie Dunsford. I will speak first. Excuse my voice, it's a little bit funny at the moment, about this, the bigger issues regarding this hugely popular walk that's ended up closed, basically because nothing much has been done. Debbie will cover the significance of the walk to the community, including its historical significance. We believe there is a simple, low-cost option to rectify this situation. The officer's report for this meeting recommends the do-nothing option, that is, walkers should use the footpath. People do this walk because they want to walk along the coast, not on busy roads. This is not acceptable to our community. The Category A Historic Places designation placed on the property is the crux of the problem. One can only wonder how it came about. I know Trish has referred to the criteria, but I'd be really interested to read the actual assessment of it, especially a Category A designation, because you look at other buildings with a Category A designation in Auckland and it's, well, there's no comparison. But it is clear that in 2018, Council intended to buy the property and entered into a heads of agreement. This was withdrawn, but Council officers are now saying they do not support purchase of the site for reasons that it is not, including that it's not of sufficient importance. If this is the case, and given the dilapidated state of the property, how can the retention of the designation be supported? Because of council inaction, the owners have felt forced to take action and close off the walkway. The Milford to Takapuna Coastal Walk is available because of the goodwill of landowners along its length. Council has no involvement or liability. This arrangement over the Firth property could continue if the council would initiate a plan change seeking the removal, as we've heard. The owners have also offered an encumbrance on the title, providing for public access if the designation is removed. Why is this so hard? That's what we can't understand. It seems to be an obvious, low-cost, win-win situation that benefits all parties, most importantly, the public. We don't believe it is reasonable to expect the landowners to apply for the plan change. They never asked for it, and the council's reneged on its intention to buy the property. The simplicity of the solution addresses many of the reasons given by council officers for doing nothing. It's low cost. The land is not vulnerable to storm surge, as it is on a high promontory of rock. No structures are required with an associated consenting costs. No land acquisition is needed. And that means there's no need to consider climate change. And it will not set a precedent, in our opinion, for other properties along the walkway. No land is being purchased. All the community wants is to get the coastal walk back as it was. No changes. Removing the designation via the plan change process is a simple way to achieve this, and the council would be seen to be acting in a positive way for the community you serve. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, councillors and Mr Chairman, I'm Debbie Dunsford, co-chair of the Milford Residents Association. The Milford to Takapuna coastal route has been used continuously by tangata whenua and more recently continuously also by Pākehā residents and visitors to the area for more than 90 years. And there are newspaper articles from 1926 and 1935 that give strong evidence of the role of that walkway as a tourist attraction and as just a part of local people being able to walk up and down that coast. And it really is a truly significant piece of coastline, nationally significant for its geology, but regionally and locally significant for that unique way that the beaches, the volcanic rock and the sea all come together. That clambering walk over rocks and seawalls is an energetic and uplifting part of everyday life for many in our community, and it has been for generations. Many of our families go back several generations, and our parents walked this track, so it's part of our collective memory. And it is truly part of Milford and Takapuna's heritage. We feel that Council's recent reports on the coastal route have ignored this long history of customary use and, as a consequence, have discounted its importance to the local community. We had assumed up until very recently that common sense would prevail in the matter, that negotiations were happening behind the scenes with the owners and that eventually there would be an easement made of some description. We're now alarmed at Council's position that the through route has so little significance that Council is not prepared to buy the property, to obtain the easement, and is actually prepared to cut it into two distinct halves. So it will no longer be a route. It will simply be a couple of patches of coastline. We're also advised that the route is in the process of being removed from the local board's greenways plan. And we ask, when was this decision made that it was acceptable to divide a route used for 90 years and remove it from the local board's greenways plan? Who made this decision? Our elected representatives or council staff? And how can a route with 90 years of continuous access be suddenly cut in half without any consultation with residents? So the Firth family has allowed the public to cross their land since the 1940s, even though it certainly impinged on their privacy. The wooden bridge that was constructed in the 1980s, 1990s, I'm not sure exactly when, was an effective move by North Shore City to solve the privacy versus access issue, until it was destroyed in the storm of 2011. So this was an example of a previous council actually acting to solve that problem actively, and it was actually quite a good solution for a while. So previous agreements and failed negotiations with the late Paul Firth are now in the past, and the opportunity exists for council to either make this go along with the gaining the easement for a footpath in exchange for council instigating a plan change, or in the last set of discussions, for council to again look at purchasing the property, especially to protect that heritage property. But we don't expect a family to be expected to carry the financial burden and loss the heritage listing has imposed. This is too much for the average family in Auckland. And really, I don't think that our local community expects them to do that. The local view is unequivocally that the dilapidated house has questionable heritage status, but the coastal route itself should be designated Heritage A++ status. Council does need to acknowledge that it has underestimated the route, the importance and significance to its community, and to let the situation go this far would simply be plain stupid. It is a stupid solution to have the thing cut in half, and I can't see how the council can possibly think that that's a possibility going forward. I think that our community will never accept that position. We want to see that route open, and we will work actively to ensure that that happens, and we ask that the council cooperates with us.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Mayor Brown, did you have a question? No. Was there any questions to this presentation? None online. Deputy Mayor will move. I just have one question. So, seeing the presentation just before this, there is a suggestion that is the easy, simple move is removing the Category A. I guess from your perspective, do you understand that actually that isn't we cannot remove it? Yeah.
But I think that we would dispute the fact that it is more of a burden on a community group to go out and raise that sort of money. I mean, Mayor Brown can apparently whistle the money up with no problem at all from the North Shore, but I think that a local group would find that a huge effort to actually undertake that. And we do feel that the council has a role in this, that the council has allowed this set of discussions and negotiations and heads of agreement to go on and on and on. And now we've got to this point where everybody's, people are dug in, and that we think that there is a role for the council to actually help this achieve a solution.
Thank you. First of all, Councillor Fletcher, and then you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. The difficulty that I see is, since amalgamation, it is very difficult to come up with bespoke solutions, which are often required in complex situations, because we are all elected to be regional councillors, and we've got to look at consistency across the region. Is there an appreciation, because I understand that you are submitting that you just expected common sense would prevail on this. Is there an understanding amongst your group that we can't just tailor a bespoke situation here? And is there a willingness to actually work perhaps with other groups to try and initiate this in perhaps the manner the Mayor has been proposing?
Sorry, who's been proposing? The Mayor, right, okay.
I think that if the council was prepared to purchase the property and the walkway remained open, that would be, I think everyone would be happy if the council was able to do that. We were just working on the assumption that any solution would need to be a low cost and simple solution. So we've come up with an option that we think would fit that bill. And from what I understand from the officers' reports, that the cost of initiating or doing a plan change for the council is estimated from $40,000 up, but for a private person to do it would be more expensive, 50% more expensive. So, yeah, there's an added cost there for a private individual to initiate it.
And I think that although...
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Oh,
my apologies.
I was just going to say that I'm sure every councillor from every area has got wonderful walkways with views and particular spots that are sitting there. And so this could be a situation that happens anywhere in Auckland. And I just think that the issue of something that's been in customary use for so long and can now just be cut is is an important issue in itself, and it does need to be resolved, and maybe we do have to set a precedent or have a bespoke solution. But I think that it's a possibility of something that could happen in anyone's area to an iconic part of their particular area. We're just trying to...
Yeah, I can see what you were trying to propose, and I know that under the legacy councils, there was greater scope for these types of solutions, tailor-made solutions, and I know in the case of Legacy Auckland City, prior to the formation of the Te Puna Manga Authority, there was a property that was purchased in Epsom on the slopes of one of the manga there. But I haven't seen other examples of that during the duration of the amalgamated Auckland Council. But I look forward to participating in the debate that Council will have on this somewhat later. But thank you for your submission.
Thank you. Thank you. Mayor Brown.
2 questions. Why didn't they fix the bridge in 2011 when it first came down?
Very good question. Again, it's part of the history.
Because the council stopped communicating and stopped negotiations. And so that's when the heads of agreement began.
Cool, we just can't have conversations happening from the back of the room. Thank you.
Do you want to repeat that?
Just have the answer from the table.
As I understand it, that there was a lack of action from the council on this matter, and that's why it didn't happen.
There must have been a bit of a lack of action from the community too.
Please keep it to questions.
All right.
We were able to walk across it because Paul Firth allowed us to.
Okay,
Access
well, that's nice of him.
access was maintained throughout.
So, and the next question, because it seemed this is the first time I've debated this. So, just to remind you, who actually did close it off? It was the people who put the fence up. It wasn't actually me. Just please remember that. So that was my next question. Who actually stopped it? It wasn't me. It was.
There hasn't been any suggestion that it was,
Oh,
but the history of it is that because of the lack of action, I guess the landowners felt that it was necessary to try and get some action, bring it to a head.
I accept it.
Yeah, which
But
is
the
so
lack of action that suited the particular person who put the fence up, it doesn't mean to say that's the lack of action. So that I'm proposing that we examine all opportunities, and we just had a completely different one from the people who were sitting in that place 5 minutes before you. So thank you very much for that.
Well, I think your suggestion of purchase, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that suggestion at all. And I think all potential solutions should be canvassed.
Thank you very much. Right, all those in favour? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Now that completes the public forum for today.